question says, place the following organisms under the heading. So we have to complete this table, and we have to place the following organisms under the heading in the table below: human, mushroom, Venus flytrap, water leaf plants, okay, tapeworm, elephant grass, housefly, lichen, spirogyra, rhizopus, cattle and white egret, flowers and honeybees, mistletoe and cocoa plants, and then you have remora and shark. This is the revision class for the NECO exams, biology essay exams. So you're welcome to this class. So let's look at this question, because every year some questions come out every year. So questions like this we always come. Questions that relates to relationship, feeding relationship between organisms. Okay, so basically nutrition, there are two basic types. We have the autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. Autotrophic is from the word auto. Auto is from the word automatic. Trophy means feeding. So autotrophic means self-feeding. So autotrophic nutrition is the kind of nutrition in which plants manufacture their food by themselves. Organisms manufacture food by themselves, and that is actually found in green plants. They are autotrophs. They manufacture food by themselves. Heterotrophic nutrition is when organisms depend on other plants and other animals. They depend on plants and animals for their feeding. Now, this relationship, feeding relationship, we have the holozoic. Holozoic is the same thing as heterotrophic. That's what you have in animals. While autotrophic can also be called holophytic. So this autotrophic can also be called holophytic. So in case you find holophytic in your exam, it's talking about autotrophic nutrition that you find in plants. So now let's try to settle in and then answer these questions. So the first one is human. Where do we position human? Humans are holozoic. So humans will be here. Humans are here. Mushroom are saprophytes. Saprophytism is when organisms depend on dead, decaying organic matter for their food. So mushroom is an example of organisms that grow on dead, decaying organic matter. You see that you find them on decaying wood. All right. So mushroom is saprophytic. So mushroom is here. So fungi, basically they are saprophytes, okay? Then you have Venus flytrap. Venus flytrap is a plant, so it can be autotrophic. Venus flytrap. However, they are insectivorous plants. What's the meaning of insectivorous plant? They are plants that also consume insects. That sounds funny, right? But that's the truth. There are certain plants that have the ability to capture insects and they digest the insect. You call them insectivorous plants. Now, these kind of plants are plants that are found in areas, in lands with shortage of certain mineral materials. For example, nitrogen. So when you have a land, an area or a land where plants are growing and there is shortage of nitrogen there, because nitrogen is a core nutrient, is a macronutrient that is important for plant growth. Without this nitrogen, there will be stunted growth. So these plants need to improvise and find an adaptive feature, or they need to adapt to that environment and find another way to get nitrogen. And insects are proteinous, they are nitrogenous. All right, so these plants tend to trap or capture these insects and they digest them, and they can now access nitrogen from this insect. So example of such is the Venus flytrap. Okay, so the Venus flytrap, the doda plant, the sundew. All right, the sundew, Venus flytrap, doda plant, pitcher plants. Okay, they are organisms or plants that can actually feed, or they can consume insects. So they have a way to trap the insects, and then they secrete certain hormones or enzymes to digest that insect. So Venus flytrap is autotrophic because it's a green plant. It is also holozoic. So Venus flytrap is also holozoic because it can feed on insects. It is insectivorous. Now let's continue. We have water leaf. Water leaf is autotrophic. It's a plant. Water leaf. And because it's a plant, it can manufacture food by itself. So they are autotrophic. Tapeworm, they are parasites. They find them in the gut of the host. If it's the human host, in the gut, in the stomach, in the digestive tract of the host. And they are always attached to the wall of the small intestine where digestion ends. So they suck the nutrients from the host. Okay, so tapeworm is an example of parasitism. So that is tapeworm. Tapeworm. And of course, there's a species of tapeworm that you find in cattle, that is the Tinea saginata. Then there is a species that is found in pork, and that is Tinea solium. So human hosts or humans can be affected when they feed on that pork and when they feed on the cattle. Now let me quickly shock you. Are you aware that not every humans have worms in their body? I know many of you listening to this, you grew up learning that every human beings have worms in their body. And probably you might be thinking you have worms in your body as well. But that is not true. When you have worms in your body, it's an infection. You have been infected with it. And one of the ways you can get infected is when you feed on meat that is not well cooked. So when you feed on pork meat, which is the meat of the pig, okay, you can be infected with Tinea solium from pork meat. You can be infected with Tinea saginata from beef. That's cattle. All right. So these parasites are not part of the human body. What you have in you are the intestines, the small intestines, the large intestine. You don't have worm in you. So if there are worms in you, then you were infected by the worms. I know you might still be arguing with me, but let me give you 1, 2, or 3 symptoms of somebody that is infected with teniasis. That's what they call it. Teniasis is when tinea, okay, has actually infected a person. Now, number 1, these parasites, they can lay a lot of eggs. They become gravid. Gravid means they have a lot of eggs, and then when they lay these eggs, the egg hatch, and once the egg hatch, the worms come out of the egg. Worms come out, the eggs, they come out in their number, and they fill up the digestive tract, the stomach. And so that person, the worm load is called worm load. The worm load increases. All right. And then if there is a pressure on that stomach, you can begin to vomit the worms. All right. That is one. Number 2, regular stomach upset. Okay. Regular indigestion. That is another one. Regular indigestion. Another one is you go to the toilet to poo, and then you see some worms wriggling out, coming out through your anus. So let me ask you again, is that, or do you have those symptoms in your body? Another one is that the person will just continue to eat and eat, and the food will not have any impact. The person will be emaciating, the person will be reducing in size. You are not seeing the impact of the food. Why? Because the end product of the food, the parasite is actually ingesting it, and the person cannot have access to it. Now, that does not mean people that are slim, like me, people that are not big, that does not mean they are infected with tinea, okay? There are some people that genetically, they are slim people. Is that okay? So, but those are symptoms of somebody that is infected, all right, with tapeworm. So I want to ask you again, if you have all those symptoms, then you are. But I want to ask you, are you really infected? So if the answer is no, then from today begin to also educate other people that it's a misconception to feel that every human, everybody has worm in their body. And let me also say this. The last time when you were young, when you probably had worm infection, you took a worm expellant. You took certain medication. If that medication was working effectively, then it would have expelled, it would have destroyed the worms in your body. And that means you don't have worm anymore. So if you have another one, it means you were infected by that worm. I hope that is clear. So that is tapeworm for you. Now the next thing, so it's parasitic. The next one is Elephant grass. Elephant grass is green plant, so it's autotrophic. Elephant grass. Elephant grass. What a leaf. Elephant grass. The next one is housefly. Housefly, they cannot manufacture food by themselves, and they are not parasitic. They are not mutualist. All right, they are holozoic. So housefly will be here. Housefly. They can't manufacture food by themselves. They depend on plants and other source of food for their meal. Lichen or lichen, it's a symbiotic relationship between algae and fungi, and you see it on a new land where plants are just growing. Okay, so that is mutualism. There is a mutual or symbiotic relationship. So that's symbiosis. That's another name for mutualism for your level. All right. So symbiosis or mutualism, lichen is a symbiotic relationship between algae and fungi. The next one is Spirogyra. Spirogyra is an algae, and then they can actually they possess pigments. So those pigments, they use those pigments to manufacture their food. All right, they are plants, like they are not true plants, but they have green pigments, they have red pigment, different pigments, and they can use those pigments to manufacture their food. So where do you classify Spirogyra? They are not holozoic, they are not parasitic, they are not mutual, they are not saprophytic, they are autotrophic. Okay, so we position them here. So that is Spirogyra. Okay, so they are algae. We're done with Spirogyra. The next one is Rhizopus. Rhizopus, they are saprophytes. So Rhizopus they are fungi. Okay, other ones, mucor, bread mold, mucor, they are all saprophytes. Even yeast. Okay, next, cattle and white egret. Cattle and white egret. So there is a column that is also left out of here, which is commensalism. Commensalism. Okay, that's the final column. Commensalism. So cattle and white egret, they are commensals. What is commensalism? Commensalism is when a particular organism is benefiting from the other, and then the other is neither losing nor gaining. The other is not losing anything, it's not gaining anything, while the other is gaining from it. So that's what you call commensalism. So cattle and white egret, there are some white birds that land on the cattle, where you see a large head of cattle, where you have cows. You see white birds that are landing on them and picking up ticks from their body. Okay, so those birds are benefiting, they are getting feed, getting food from the cattle, but the cattle does not gain anything. So whether they pick up those ticks from them or not, it does not affect the cattle. So they are commensals. So commensalism. So cattle and white egret or cattle egret, cattle and white egret. That is commensalism. Next, flowers and honeybees. Flowers and honeybees, they are also commensals. The honeybees, they land on flowers, all right, and they suck nectar. They suck nectar. The bees, they suck nectar from the flower. But they are actually not commensals. Rather, they are what? They are mutualists. How are they mutualists? So the honeybee will land on the flower and suck nectar. So they are getting food from it. But they also help in pollination. Are you with me? While they are trying to go suck the nectar inside the ovary, close to the ovary of the flower, they use their body, all right, the hair on their body, pack the pollen grain from the anther, and then the pollen grain is transferred to the stigma, and that is pollination happening. So the flower also benefits in terms of pollination, while the honeybee, they benefit in terms of getting nectar, feeding from there. So because of that, they are mutualists. Mutual. So honeybees honeybees and flowers. Honeybees and flowers. They are mutual. Next, mistletoe and cocoa plants. This is actually parasitic. So these mistletoe, they are parasites of this cocoa plant. So you have them here. Mistletoe and cacao plant. And then the next one, remora and shark. So if you look at shark in the water, when they are done eating, feeding, they have some leftover in their teeth, in between their teeth. Okay, so you see these fishes, they come around and they try to eat the leftover, and the shark will open their mouth and allow them to come and to eat from there. Even birds, they come as well to do the same, and this shark will not cover the mouth to kill them. So this relationship is commensalism. The shark is making food available to these to the remora, right? But the shark is neither gaining nor losing. So that is commensalism. So remora and shark. All right, so we have been able to answer this question. The next question we'll be looking at, we are asked to complete the table, class of vertebrates and one example each. So I've done a video on classification of living things, the animal diversity, the plant diversity. If you have not seen the video, please check it up in my YouTube channel. Now, there are 5 classes of the vertebrates. The vertebrates belong to the phylum Chordata. They are the animals which have backbone. So those classes, you have the Pisces. That's the first. The first class is the Pisces, and these are the fishes. So example of that is the tilapia fish. Tilapia fish. That's one example, tilapia fish. There are other kinds of fish, catfish. Okay. So number 2, you have amphibia. Class amphibia. Example is your frog, toad, salamander, newt, etc. Just give one example each. Number 3, the class reptilia. Reptilia are the reptiles. So you have snake, lizard, you have alligator, etc. All right, turtle. Number 4, you have the class aves. The aves. The aves are the birds. Example of birds, your dove, chicken or fowl, okay, parrots, etc. They are examples of aves. And the last one is the class mammalia. Mammalia, they are the mammals, they are the organisms that give rise to their young ones alive. Example of mammalia is human, man, the goats, all right, cattle, they all give rise to young ones alive. The next question says we should complete this table, diseases and their causative agents. So the first disease here is cholera. And so what's the causative organism? It is Vibrio cholerae. It is a bacterial infection. It's a bacteria. So Vibrio cholerae. Vibrio cholerae. That is the causative organism. The vector, cholera. You can get it from housefly. Okay, that's the disease vector, housefly. Housefly. Now, what's the meaning of disease vector? Housefly, cockroaches. Okay, so vectors are the carriers of diseases, or they are the carriers of the causative agents of the disease. They are the animals that carry those causative agents from one infected person, victim, to the other. All right, so housefly. And how do you control housefly? Proper food hygiene, when you properly prepare your food, and then your water, be very cautious of the kind of water that you drink. Avoid contaminated water, boil your water. So proper food hygiene, then even boiling of water consumption before consumption, and that is proper food and water hygiene. Now, trypanosomes are responsible for the disease called trypanosomiasis. And this trypanosomiasis, that is sleeping sickness, and it's caused by the vector Tsetse fly. In cattle, they begin to sleep. And then how do you control it? Vaccination, use of vaccine. So you can actually vaccinate your cattle against this, and then you can also make use of vaccination basically. Then the next one, female Anopheles mosquito is the vector that carries the malaria parasite. So definitely the disease is malaria. And what is the name of the causative agent? That is the Plasmodium falciparum. Plasmodium falciparum. Okay, and how do you control it? Use of insecticide treated mosquito nets. Then you can also avoid stagnant water and drainages. Avoid stagnant water in your drainages and around you. Okay, so get rid of stagnant water. Okay, so you can use that to control it. Then ringworm. Ringworm is actually a fungal infection, all right? And the causative organism is Taenia species, all right? This is responsible for, it's the fungal infection that you see on the skin, right? On the outer layer of the skin, Taenia species. And that's, and then how do you control it? Proper hygiene, proper personal hygiene. When you bathe at the right time, you clean up your body, and then avoid contact with infected people. So because when you stay too close with people that are infected, you can also get infected. All right, so we have been able to answer a few questions here. The last question I'll be dealing with in this class is genetics. I'm going to be, because every year question come out on genetics. So we are going to quickly see how we can determine the genotypic ratio and the phenotypic ratio. This question says 2 heterozygous yellow flowers are crossed. Now there are 3 types of genotype. Cross states the phenotypic and genotypic ratios of the first filial generation. The phenotypic or phenotype talks about the physical appearance. Genotype talks about the gene configuration. So there are 3 types of genotype of organisms that you could be asked. You have the homozygous dominant. So for example, if we are talking about height now, tallness, homozygous means same, homo, dominant, tall. Homozygous dominant, it will be double capital T. Then we have heterozygous dominant. Hetero means different. So capital T and small t. This is heterozygous, is still dominant. This will still be a tall plant. But they have the same phenotype but different genotype. Physically both are tall, but this one has homozygous characters or gene. This has heterozygous. Then we have the recessive gene. recessive cannot be heterozygous. So they might say recessive, they may say homozygous recessive. It's always homozygous small t. And this organism will be short, or this plant will be short. While these two, they are tall. So please take note, when they ask you to cross tall and short, don't say T for tall and S for short. That is wrong. Okay, you use capital T for tall, you use small t for short. And recessive genes are only expressed when they are homozygous recessive. So let me put homozygous here. Homozygous recessive. So they are only expressed when they are homozygous. But when they are heterozygous here, this guy is just a carrier of the shortness, but it will not be short. The dominant character will be expressed, which is the tall one. Now, this question says 2 heterozygous yellow flowers. So that means we are going to use the parent gene is going to be YY and YY. Please, your labeling are very important. So this is yellow, but it's heterozygous. Then the next one is the parent gamete. So gamete, something will happen here. You split this into 2 separate, and that is the theory of segregation of gene under one of the genetic law, the laws of genetics. Segregation of gene says you are going to split this. Half of this gene enters into each gamete. So you need to do this labeling correctly and put it in a circle to show that it's a gamete. Then we also have this Y, and then you have this. Then you have X. So the gametes cross together. And then we are going to now have this, and this. You have capital YY. Then you have this and this. Capital Y, small y. Then you have this and this. Capital Y, small y. Then you have this and this, small y, small y. Then you label this as fertilization. Fertilization or crossing. So when they fertilize, when they cross, then these are the first filial generation. You label it first filial generation, or you can call it the hybrid. The first filial generation. Now, for this first filial generation, what is now going to be the phenotypic ratio and the genotypic ratio? The question says we should find the phenotypic ratio. So the phenotypic ratio is going to be what? So look at it. This is yellow. This is not yellow. Oh, sorry. This is yellow. This is yellow as well. But it's heterozygous yellow. This is homozygous yellow. So all the 3 are yellow. So these 2, they have the same genotype. This is separate genotype, this is separate, but these 3 have the same phenotype. So phenotypic ratio physically, these are yellow, yellow, yellow. So it's 3:1. While the genotypic ratio will be what? How many of these kind of genotype do we have? 1 ratio. How many of these do we have? 2 ratio. How many of these do we have? 1. So if you have done it like this, that is the correct answer. The phenotypic ratio is 3:1. Genotypic ratio is 1:2:1. That is the answer for the first filial generation. So I hope this has helped you to recall some of the topics that you are expecting in your exams. I wish you all the best. If you have not subscribed to this channel, do well to subscribe and share this video with your friends, and place a comment if you got value from this video. Bye for now. I wish you success in your exams. See you in the next class.